Hello, and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever. This normally would have been episode 163, but I feel like with the birthday episodes that they're so, off the beaten path in a way, I'm just going to call this the birthday 26 episode. And Silent Hill F is still coming. I just haven't felt like recording that one quite yet, but it will happen next. I promise. There's a very colorful grid in front of you, and the thumbnail probably gave you some idea of what this video is going to be about, which typically my birthday episodes have been roster building of some kind, and we're doing a Nintendo versus Capcom roster build for this particular year, which I have not done. And I'm a little surprised. The legacy of my various website endeavors has a Nintendo vs. Capcom fan design buried in it. Unfortunately, it was not archived on the Internet Archive at all. So that's kind of lost media in a way. But with the viewfinder of 2026, how would I build a roster for Nintendo vs. Capcom with a limitation of 66 characters and having the roster be perfectly split 50-50 men and women or male-female characters? That is what we'll be doing today. And just for the sake of expediency, I'm not going to get into super deep breakdowns of every character I chose. If you've watched my Smash videos, the Nintendo side might be a little predictable. Because I use a lot of those same characters, and if you watch the vs. Capcom or Capcom vs. SNK videos that I've done in the past, might be a little familiar there too. There are a few differences, but you know, I don't want to necessarily repeat myself a whole lot. I just want to talk about this potential. Nintendo and Capcom are two of my favorite developers of video games. They have been for decades at this point. And putting them together into a fighting game is like the pie in the sky dream game. If I had any influence at all in the industry, I would make that. So that's what we'll be doing. But first, before we jump into this, I've got some pickups, so we'll get into those first. Alright, the one thing I've gotten since the last video are these amazing handmade Totoro plushes that a coworker made for me for my birthday. I adore them so much. I am so delighted. I can't even really express it. Alright, so as I said earlier, there's 66 slots in this roster. However, I couldn't fit 66 of them onto this screen comfortably. So it's split into two parts. So here's part one, here's part two. We will get into this second set of characters after we get through the first set. And then we'll kind of do a retrospective of all of that at the end. This background, as just a fun aside, is something I made back in 2000. 26 years old-ish at this point. Anyway, to start us off, we'll start with Nintendo. It'll rotate between a male character and a female character, except for one point where I forgot to mix them up, but then I have two women in a row to counteract that. So anyway, starting with Mario, because if I didn't have Mario in a Nintendo vs. Capcom project, it just doesn't feel right. Mario is Nintendo. On that same note, Mega Man. Capcom without Mega Man of some degree feels wrong. So I'm sticking with classic. I don't care for X beyond the first game. So I have no attachment. I need to play all the Legends games, so I don't have an attachment. I don't really care for Battle Network or Star Force, so neither of those make sense. I am a classic Mega Man fan, I love the NES games, so I went with a very deliberate aesthetic choice to use Mega Man 1 Mega Man for the art here. But I just really would like to see classic Mega Man in a Capcom fighting game again. It's been too long, and honestly, the first attempt was a little clunky in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2. I think what they've done in Smash, and then subsequently with X and Infinite, could work really well in a more traditional Capcom vs. style game. Samus. Of course I'm going to have Samus as like one of the very first picks I shove in here. She is tied with Jade as my favorite game character of all time. And with Vice from Skies of Arcadia as well. Those are my top 3 that always kind of flip-flop around. She'll be in her Dread armor for this game. I really like the Dread armor. It grew on me a lot in the process of playing that game. Maybe if we have alternate costumes in this Pie in the Sky Dream game, she'll have her classic Super Metroid Varia suit. But otherwise, Samus has to be in this game for me personally. We're mixing up the Resident Evil characters heavily in this project. Claire has never been in a versus fighting game. It seems that every time they release one, it is not her time. So with Marvel 2, it was Jill, because that was 99. RE2 was still kind of fresh, probably in concurrent development, so they went with the character that was pre-existing at that point, which would have been Jill. When Marvel 3 came out, Resident Evil 5 was just out the door, so they went with Chris and Wesker and Jill again, but different Jill, RE5 Jill, worse Jill. And then when Infinite came about, they went with Chris alone, and then brought Nemesis from Ultimate Marvel 3 along for the ride. Claire just hasn't had it happen. So I want Claire to be in this game because Claire is my favorite woman in RE, and I think it's high time that she has a chance to shine in a versus game. Link. I couldn't ignore Link. I had to put a Link in here. There's only one. I'll just be up front. We're not going to have multiple Links like with Hyrule Warriors or in Smash. We're going to have one Link. It will be Tears of the Kingdom Link because I think aesthetically that is my favorite looking Link out of all of them. The Hyrule Warriors Link is also really good, but I just really like the look of Tears of the Kingdom Link, and I think that we can do some interesting things with that magical hand of his. Ryu has to be here. Ryu is a staple in the Versus series. He's not missed a single game. He's got to be in this too. It'll be Street Fighter 6 Ryu instead of classic Ryu. But I do think that not having him would just be weird. All right. Surprisingly, I kept my Fire Emblem bias at an all-time low. I have never had only 2 reps from Fire Emblem in any of these things that I've done. I have managed to keep it down to 2. Idleguard's 1. We'll find out the other quite a bit later. If you know me, though, you'll probably guess. I think Idleguard would make a great addition to a versus game with just... There's not been many axe users in fighting games. And I think that would be high time to actually have one. She could throw tomahawks around. She can utilize her full-on axe. We could even have her go into like a level up class change type of thing as a super. There's a lot of potential with Idleguard. She's also one of my favorite characters in the franchise, so I think she's a really good choice to pick from Three Houses because my favorite character from Three Houses, Petra, is too much like the character that I am picking next. So, Idleguard it is. Alright. My Devil May Cry bias is so lady-coded that I can't help it. Dante's not in this design. Lady's in. Another character is in. You can probably guess who the other character might be. If it's not Dante, who the next person would be. I think Lady's DMC3 design is truly iconic. I love the way that she is in Devil May Cry 3. I wish she was playable in Devil May Cry 3. She is not. I don't like her design in 4, and her 5 design I like less than her 3. So she's going to be in her 3 outfit and just running around with her bike and her rocket launcher and her guns, doing cool stuff like she do. Donkey Kong and Pauline from Bonanza will be coming in. I kind of have a different move set in mind with Pauline involved. That's going to involve a lot of transformations as like super moves and stuff. But I think DK has grown on my list of Nintendo likables so much with Bonanza that I'm putting him in super early on this list. How could I not pick Strider? How could I not pick Strider? Strider is my favorite Capcom character, period. And we're going with the 2014 look. It hasn't actually been in a Versus game yet. For some reason, Infinite just decided to ignore that and went with Hien from Strider 2 instead. But no, we are full on 2014 celebratory with Strider in this design. That will give him a bit more flexibility with his moveset, because he'll be able to throw, I think they call them shuriken in this, on top of his usual layout. But this design's so cool. This is his Teppen art design, and I just think it's one of the best designs he's ever had. So we're using it. Marina and Pearl from Splatoon will be making it in. It's kind of how I've envisioned them with Smash, which is Marina running around as the primary character, and Pearl is the little bot from Side Order, providing support. And she'll be sitting in the background playing around with the controls for the robot. And then she'll probably be involved with super moves and stuff. I love Pearl and Marina so much. They're my favorite Splatoon characters. I had to put them in here if I was going to make this. Amaterasu from Okami. I love Ami. She truly is an icon of the 2000s era of Capcom. The shining beacon of Clover, as far as I'm concerned, and so excited to see what Clover's does with the Okami sequel. So it seems fitting to bring Ami back after sitting out of Infinite, because she was in MVC3 and Ultimate, and just giving her a chance to shine once again. I didn't want this roster to just be humanoid characters, so you can already tell, like with Donkey Kong and with Ami, that I'm trying to branch stuff out a little bit. Speaking of that, Bowser is our first secondary character from a franchise already represented. We're going to be in a bit of a villain run here, if I remember correctly. Bowser is probably the most iconic villain Nintendo has, at least the most popular. But there's plenty more to pull from, as you'll see as we go along. I kind of envision Bowser being a bit more grapply, since Smash kind of leaned that direction. And I think that would work well for him, honestly. Wesker. I love Wesker in MVC3. I think that he was a really, really fun character to play. I'm not good with him, but he's fun to play. And I really like his RE5 design, and we'll have to get a new voice actor. Thankfully, RE4 Remake recast him, and that actor is brilliant. So I think that Wesker is definitely like my villain choice to really represent the Capcom side of things. Medusa is the Kid Icarus rep. I benched Pit, I benched Palutena. We are all in on Medusa. I love the uprising design of Medusa. She's so sick. I think that she could have so much potential with her moveset, doing stuff like what Gorgons normally do, but she's also quite a masterclass sorceress herself. So I could just see all kinds of really neat things. Plus she can summon a bunch of enemies if she needed to. Just really cool stuff. I have a really cool visual of what she could do. I think she'd just be a great ad. BB Hood from Darkstalkers is technically a villain. She is trying to kill all the Darkstalkers. And I love BB Hood. I think she is such a iconic design from a game full of iconic characters. Darkstalkers really has some of Capcom's best design work, but I think BB Hood, just taking the Little Red Riding Hood concept and taking it up to 11 by making her like this absolutely unhinged bounty hunter, just an amazing design. So she has to be in this, and she is the sole Darkstalkers rep. Unfortunately, I ran out of room before I could throw in another one. Have to have Ganondorf in there. I still think his Ocarina version is my favorite, so that's why I've used the Smash render. I think that the moveset that I have in mind for him is very Ocarina coded anyway, so I think that he's just going to really fit in really well and represent the Zelda franchise as its main antagonist brilliantly in a fighting game like this. Here's the other one. It's Virgil, the other Devil May Cry character. I love Virgil in Ultimate Marvel 3. I think he's really a badass in DMC 3 and 5. I just think he's phenomenal in everything that he's been in. So I want him to be in this game too. Lash from Advance Wars. I think Lash is a great antagonary force in those games. One of the only things that I personally really like about Advance Wars, to be honest. And it's weird that we actually haven't had any franchise representation of them outside of an assist trophy in like 2 games for the Advance Wars saga. So, actual character, she would have all kinds of tech and unit assists with her moveset. I think I plotted her out in something that I did for Smash. I think she was one of the ones that actually got a video. But I think that she's a really great character that I would love to see actually make the leap into a fighting game. Juri. She's the new Street Fighter rep. One of 2, actually. There's 4 Street Fighter characters total on this roster. I had to kind of do that for a couple because there's just so many great characters in a couple of these franchises that it was really hard to narrow it down to like 2. But Juri, I think, would fit in extremely well as the antagonist for a versus game, replacing Bison and Akuma, basically. Didn't want Akuma in this because Ryu's already there. But Juri brings a lot of uniqueness to the table, and I think she would be a lot of fun. Ridley. After a successful transformation into a playable character in Ultimate, Ridley can basically come in almost unchanged into a versus fighting game. Maybe not the instant death dagger tail, but really, really great antagonist force. One of my favorites in all of games, and one that I think just has to be in a fighting game like this. Similarly, we have Firebrand, who is in that weird position of being kind of a hero and more viewed as an enemy because of Ghosts and Goblins, but they named him Firebrand after the Gargoyle's Quest Demon's Crest games. I want to see more of that evolution that Infinite started with him, about including more of his Demon's Crest stuff, so I would definitely be tossing in some Gargoyle transformations into his moveset, and maybe even a few enemy summons from SVC Chaos, just to really give him a really diverse potential moveset. But I love Firebrand quite a bit, actually, and I think that he's one of Capcom's most notorious enemy designs that has become a bit more than just an enemy over time. And I really do like Demon's Crest and the Gargoyle's Quest games a lot, so would love to see him in this. Kachi from Sin and Punishment Star Successor. For those who are not familiar with this franchise of 2 games, Kachi is Achi, the antagonist from the first game. She has lost her memory and doesn't remember that she's Achi until the end of the game. And then she's like, oh yeah, I need to be evil. So the series ends with her basically tricking Issa at the end to continue supporting her in her plot to take over the universe or whatever. But I love the designs of Star Successor so much. I think she would be a really fun, sick character that would be a bit unique. And Issa could be there to support her. Tron Bonne is the Mega Man villain, in quotes, that I chose. She's more of just an antagonist than like a hardcore villain, but she's a great character. She's got legacy. She would just transfer really well into this. She's in. Mewtwo, my favorite Pokemon in the entire Smash run, I think would translate extremely well into a versus fighter. I actually surprised myself. I picked 2 Pokemon. And the other one, if you know me really well, and I probably have said this on a video or wrote about it somewhere, you'll know, but it's not any that have appeared in a Smash game before. But Mewtwo is one of my favorite characters in Smash to play, so I had to include it here. All right, taking a little break from villains, because Phoenix Wright obviously is not one. But Phoenix was so great in Ultimate that I was shocked that they dropped him in Infinite. It must have been more on a technical decision. But he's grown so much since Ultimate. He's had 2 more games. That kind of fleshed him out a little bit more. So we could just have all kinds of fun with summons. It could be more than just Maya. He would still be a little bit more on the complex side of things, having to go through stages, but I think he'd be fun. I think he'd be a really great addition. Fiora. Spoilers from Xenoblade Chronicles. I really loved playing as her in Definitive Edition. She was actually my favorite character to use once she joined the playable cast. And I think that her moveset would just translate super well into a fighting game. So I want her to be a playable option really bad. Debilot from Cyberbots. This was actually a late edition. So she's in a different spot from another character from the same game. But I remembered that Devilot is just like this really fascinating character that has so much personality that she could really shine in a game where she's outside of her mech and doing weird stuff with all of her support characters. And then she also has a mech, kind of like Jen does. Hint, hint. I think she'd be a lot of fun to have in a versus fighting game. So I want to have her in. So I apologize that she's not sitting next to her partner in crime, who we'll be seeing in a bit. And I say partner in crime like they actually have a connection beyond being rivals. Ness from Earthbound, our Earthbound rep. I had to have an Earthbound rep. I love that game. And honestly, Ness makes the most sense to convert over. If I was doing a Mother 3 thing, I probably would have picked Kumatora instead of Lucas. But Ness has just the breadth of experience. And then Smash giving him Paula's moves just kind of fleshes him out to be an ideal platonic choice for representing that franchise. Speaking of Cyberbots, there's Jin. Jin is my favorite Marvel vs. Capcom character, I think, to play, because I think I'm actually decent with him. I can't like do wild things, but I know his moveset well enough, and I do adequately when I play with him. He's just such a hyper design in so many ways. It just like epitomizes so much of what I love about Capcom. He needs a bit more variety. He needs a little bit more diversity in what he does. If he has a sword, maybe he could use it in other moves. We could just kind of play around with some of the other things that he's kind of shows off in Marvel vs. Capcom, like with the drills and such. I love Jin. I think that he's got to be in a versus game if I have any say over who's in it. Wolf is the rep for Star Fox. I don't have Fox or Falco or Crystal or anyone else. Wolf is my boy. He is my favorite Star Fox character. He is my favorite villain character to actually play outside of Mewtwo in Smash. He's probably in my top 5 in terms of characters I just like playing as. His moveset just works really well for how my brain works. Great character design too in Ultimate. This is just iconic design. So he's my choice to represent Star Fox. On the subject of Marvel vs. Capcom regulars that haven't had a chance to shine in a long time, Captain Commando. A great implementation of the beat-em-up character in Marvel 1 that they kind of pushed in Marvel 2 a little bit by like loosening him up a bit so he can combo some stuff together. He's become a bit of a top-tier character for his assists primarily. I would love to see him jump back into the fray with maybe a little bit more variety in his moveset in a crossover event like this. I think he deserves it, honestly. Zelda. Zelda's got to be in this game. We got to have the 3 wielders of the pieces of the Triforce. And I'm going with her Tears of the Kingdom design because I like it a lot. But she does have so much stuff that she could pull from just since Ultimate even. Because she's been in Age of Calamity. She's been in Echoes of Wisdom. And she's been in Age of Imprisonment. With very distinctive movesets that could just really give her so much more than just, I'm the magic user. I really would love to see her play around a lot with just all these new tools that she has. Summoning furniture and using the Pura Pad to create stuff with like ice or whatever. The light sword that she gets in Age of Imprisonment. There's just a lot of potential for her now that I'm really excited to see her in a fighting game with that fully fleshed out. Of course, Chun-Li had to be in this game. Chun-Li is a versus game mainstay. She's got to be in here. She'll be in her Street Fighter 6 version because I love the designs of Street Fighter 6. If that wasn't apparent by now. She's got to be here. Here's the surprise. This might be one of the bigger surprises that I have, is that I picked Daisy before Peach. Now, spoiler, it's not like Peach isn't going to show up later, but I just love Daisy more. Daisy is my princess of the 3 princesses that are in the Mario universe. I just love her personality. I really love the direction she's been going lately. She would be a little bit darker if I had any say on her skin tone, so she's actually like representative of her country a little bit better, her origins as being a darker skinned princess. They've gotten slightly better about that with the last couple games, but it still needs a little bit more work. But she would be very sporty. She would have the sports stuff, the kart stuff, the party stuff that Mario and Bowser and Peach will not have. So she'll be kind of representing the spin-offs a little bit more. Proto Man. Yes, Zero's sitting out. Proto Man's the last Mega Man character. I love this guy too much. He's been a favorite since I was like 10. Over 30 years of fandom for Proto Man. Even if Capcom has not done a whole lot with him to justify my fandom of him, I think he's just such a sick looking character that I love his design. even if those writing and execution in the overall series is a little disappointing. I have had a design for him forever that I just cannot. I would love to actually see it get out of my head and be so much more than what the Power Battle spin-offs did for him. I love Proto Man. He's in this game. Here's the other Fire Emblem character. Shock! It's Lyn. I can't not put Lyn in things that I want to make fan rosters of if it's Nintendo oriented. Lyn will always be the Fire Emblem character I will go with first. I picked Edelgard first in this case to mix it up a little bit. Maybe make you think I picked someone else. No, it's always going to be Lyn. I think she'd be a lot of fun in this game. She would be different than Marth. Oriented about a different style of swordplay. She'd have her bow. Just a really fun, speedy character that I would love to see implemented in a game like this. If you didn't think I was going to put Leon S. Kennedy, the most robbed Resident Evil character of all time in terms of fighting games, into this project, I don't know what to tell you. RE4 is one of my favorite games of all time, especially the remake. RE2 is my next favorite. Those both have Leon in it. I'm looking forward to Requiem even more now that Leon's coming. I have an Nendoroid of the guy. I love Leon S. Kennedy. I've loved him for a very long time. He had to be in this game. He was going to be in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, but they took him out in the design phase. So, and then by the time Marvel 3 happened, it was RE5 time, so he was ignored. We're making up for that cruelty in my fan design. Leon's here, and I'm so happy that he is. Isabelle. I needed to actually keep a Animal Crossing character around, and Isabelle is just a really great face for that. I think that she's cute. I think that she's got charm. A generic villager doesn't quite do it for a versus game like this, in my opinion. You'll notice that I hardly have any like default characters in this. There's only one, I think, and that's in the second group of roster slots. Isabelle gives a face to Animal Crossing, and she's basically perfect representative of the franchise as far as I'm concerned. Breath of Fire. Speaking of franchises or characters that have been cruelly ignored versus series, Nina from Breath of Fire 2. She's probably the most popular of the Ninas. And there's 5 of them. Oh, technically 6. No one talks about the mobile game. She's got my favorite design. I think she's got the most potential as well, being able to transform into hybrid versions of herself with other characters. That could make for a really fun super moveset. I just love the aesthetic of Breath of Fire 2, even if the execution of the game, especially its localization, is a little lacking. But the art design is brilliant, and I've always thought that Nina was a cool character, so she's my choice to represent the franchise for the first time in a versus game. Meowth. That's right, he's in this game too. I've been a Meowth stan since Pokemon Red and Blue. I'm still annoyed that he wasn't in Red, because that's the one I had access to when I was a child. I think he would be a fun character. He's also falls into that antagonistic pile that I think we need to have a decent sized number of in a fighting game like this with a big roster. He could potentially have Team Rocket involved with his stuff. I think he'd just be fun. I think he'd be a little hoot of a kitty. Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. I almost didn't put him in, but he's such a legacy character for Capcom, and it's kind of like the parallel with Mario, honestly. because the two kind of came out around the same time frame, like Super Mario Brothers and Ghosts and Goblins. More so than Mega Man, I would argue. And, you know, I think that he deserves the spot. I think that in a team-up game like this, he deserves the ability, like, to be a part of that effort, in my opinion. He's definitely got the gravitas to hang with everyone else, and what they've done with MVC3 and Ultimate and Infinite have kind of proved that point. I think that he's a mainstay and needs to be in a future Versus project. Shulk. It's Shulk time. I had to put Shulk in here too. I really like playing as him in Smash. He's a really great character in the game he's from. He's got legacy in the whole series at this point. I think that he's the Xenoblade character. So I didn't want to just have Fiora represent that whole, but there's also a third character that we'll get to on the second set. Rad Spencer. We're going old school. We're going back to the NES design for Rad Spencer. I don't like what they did with Rearmed, and I really don't like what they did with the 2008 game that they used in both 3, Ultimate, and Infinite. Why did they stick with that horrid design of him for those games? They brought in the somewhat good Rearm design as an alt costume in 3, and then they just ignored it altogether for Infinite. I don't get it. But we're going back to the NES design. I think that is just a much better look. It's a much more clean and less weird and freaky design. And I want to diversify his moveset more to include some of the guns that he used in that game. So I think that Rad would be a really fun addition with some changes. Deep Cut. Yep, we're getting another Splatoon character. And these three would work together in a way. In fact, we're going to get another trio here in a minute. That they probably would tag themselves in. So like Shiver would tag in Fry. And then Big Man, I think, would be kind of like a special move situation. But I think that they would be a lot of fun. They've got a lot of personality. I just would like to see them as a playable option as well. And again, I don't want to pick like Inkling because I think that's just generic and boring. Alright, next up are the Pooh Sisters from Strider, 2014 specifically. The three of them wield different weapons and have different designs in 2014 compared to earlier versions of Strider where they were all the same sprite, more or less. And I like that, so I want to incorporate that element into here and have the three of them kind of tag each other in and out. But they would all share the same life bar in some way. I just think they would be a fun, different take of this style of character to have them switch in and out between guns, short range, and long range melee. Kari Hayami from 1080. She's also kind of representing Wave Race. I kind of imagine her using jet skis and snowboards equally with her moveset. I've thrown her into past designs. I think just having a character that captures the element of racing would be a lot of fun. And I love her design in Avalanche, so I want her to be in here. Tessa from Red Earth. She's crossed over once. But that was with SBC Chaos. She was also in Super Gym Fighter Mini Mix, but otherwise has been stuck in Red Earth. But I think she would make a really fantastic addition to a fighting game roster that is full of crossovers. She's got a really cool moveset that's very distinctively hers. A very unique take on the wizard sorceress archetype. She'd be fun. That's all I gotta say. She would be a lot of fun and a great add. King K. Rool. Really back in the limelight after Smash Ultimate brought him in. It's great that K. Rool is once again prominent in the Nintendo sphere and I would love to reincorporate him into a crossover event such as this, because I think he would be a great add as an antagonist. Hyoto from Star Gladiator. He is a lot of fun in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's mainly why he's here, is because I think I like him a lot in MVC 2. I haven't really played him in Plasma Sword since I got Fighting Collection 2. I think I played as June. But I think that he's like the face of that franchise and would make a good addition, especially since his franchise isn't technically dead anymore, because he's been in a game that's come out in the last year. Ashley from Another Code. I have visions of how her moveset could work, and it would incorporate D, and her playing guitar and stuff. So she would kind of be like a hybrid of her two ages in a game like this, but I just love her. I think she really shined in the remake, and I would love to see her in a game like this, just being kind of this distinctive musical ghost-assisted character. Akira from Rival Schools. I had to have a Rival Schools character pop up in a crossover of this scale, and of course it's going to be Akira. She's my favorite. She's just a sick character design. One of my absolute favorites from Capcom, honestly. And she probably would look like she does in Street Fighter V, which is what this art's from. Just a really great character, fun moveset, really great all the way around. Kirby! In case you thought I'd forgot about him, no, Kirby's here. He had to be here. There's not much else I can say. Kirby has to be in a game like this. He'd still be able to steal abilities from other characters. Last but not least for this page is Power Stone's Jack, which again, revived thanks to Fighting Collection 2. He's my favorite character design from Power Stone, and I think that he's just really fascinating. I think he would be kind of a great antagonistic addition to the overall vibe of a crossover event. And he could do all kinds of stuff with the Power Stone mechanics, like just have a chair appear in front of him and he can just push it forward, and grabbing just weird weapons across the ground. And then of course one of his supers would be transforming into his Power Stone mode. So I think Jack's a really fascinating character that would make a lot of sense in a versus crossover. So there's 54 of the 66 characters. I think that's a pretty awesome looking roster, but we're not quite done, because there's still another 12 to consider. So let's go ahead and just get some of the biggest omission probably from that first page. Peach has to be in this game if there's going to be a crossover. Luigi didn't make it. I think that I would rather have Bowser than Luigi in terms of that, and I would rather have Daisy than Luigi. So Peach is in. I would think that her moveset would have changed quite a bit because she's been in more playable roles in recent times. Princess Peach Showtime in particular, she could just be transforming into costumes all the time. That could be fun. Kimberly from Street Fighter 6. I adore this character. She's become probably my favorite Street Fighter character overall. And she's just sick. Love the fact that she's like the perfect Bushin Ryu character. Her design is awesome. She's got such a fun personality. She is also a character that I think could convert to a versus style format pretty well. Her graffiti bombs could be a bigger part of her moveset, maybe, to be a bit more explosive. No, I didn't forget him either. Captain Falcon is like the platonic ideal, apparently that's my word today, is platonic, of a Smash character fitting into a versus fighting game. He's basically that already. He reminds me a bit of what Captain Commando is, but in Smash. I think he'd be so much fun. I think he'd be an absolute riot in a game like this. Zach from Zach in Wiki Quest for Barbarossa's Treasure for the Wii. This is a deep cut pull that I really wanted to throw in. I almost forgot about him until I was doing like some last minute modifications to this list, and I was like, oh yeah, Zach should be in this game. I think that what he can do with changing items from one thing to another would be a really fun concept, because you could have like the snake, and then the snake actually attacks, but then you shake Wiki around and then it turns into a thing that Zach can then use as a weapon or something. I think he'd be fun. Gotta have Midna. It's always between Midna and Impa from Hyrule Warriors. I have the opportunity to do rosters. And this time I chose Midna because I think that Midna brings something unique to the table. Impa would just be another weapon-bearing character, and there's a lot of those in this game already. But Midna's kind of like the counterpoint to Amy from Akami. There's our two wolf girls. But Midna would have her own take on doing a lot of things with her Twily magic. So I want her in this game. Francisco von Karma, another Ace Attorney rep, but one that would be fundamentally different enough to justify including, plus that it'd be a prosecutor versus a defense attorney. Her whip gives her a lot of movement potential, and I would have her utilizing Gumshoe to support her moves. I think that she would be just a fun addition, and just bringing the other side of the courtroom drama to a versus game. Zale from The Last Story. Probably will not happen in anything ever again. Mistwalker seems pretty uninterested in doing anything else with The Last Story, but Nintendo does own the rights, partially, to it. Zale did appear in Smash as a sticker, and I would love to see him represented in a fighting game of some kind, which is why he appeared in my Smash design too. He might actually be better suited for a versus game though, because he could run up walls properly instead of having to like invent one out of thin air. I forget the name Pragmata guy. He's the one I'm a little less interested in, honestly. Diana, I remember. I like her design quite a bit. But Pragmata's duo here, I think, would be the new freshness for Capcom. And what I've seen of their moveset would be really interesting to implement into a versus game. And let's be real, if Capcom does a new versus game in the near future, these two will be in it. So I am going off of potential based on what I've seen gameplay-wise, but I think these two could be a really fun addition to a versus game. Mio from Xenoblade 3. That is my final Xenoblade pick. I've kind of tossed her around, I think, in my Smash concepts earlier. She could switch between 6 weapon sets, or if we wanted to make 6 different models, it's all 6 characters. Just tagging around, she can team up with Noah, do their funky mech demon thing that they do for supers. I think she'd be a really fun add and expand the Xenoblade roster a little bit. Pyro and Mithra would also work well, but I really don't like their characters in terms of what 2 is. Like, they're fun in Smash and their redesigns are better in Smash, but I just don't like them as like characters. I like Mio. One of these days I'll actually finish 3. Sun from Marvel 2. I thought about Ruby Heart, but Sun at least has some connection to a game that is not just Marvel 2. So I went with Sun ultimately in the end. I also really like her moveset. She's actually grown on me a lot as a character in the last couple years. I think she's a really cool, fun take on one of Capcom's oldest IP. And I would love to actually see her in something else, to be honest. I think she'd be a really fun character to play in a beat 'em up, for example, but that has not happened. Our last Nintendo character is Meta Knight. I didn't think Kirby should only go with one character, and out of DDD and Meta Knight, I like Meta Knight more, so I went with our little king here, little prince guy. I've loved him since Kirby's Adventure, honestly. And while I don't really follow the Kirby series that closely these days, I think he's got a really sick design and does some cool stuff with his cape and his sword that makes him distinctive enough. And our last Capcom character is the Arisen from Dragon's Dogma. Now you'll notice I didn't pick a Monster Hunter character, and that's because I have no attachment to Monster Hunter at all. Every time I've tried to play one, I have bounced horrifically off of it. If Capcom were to do a versus game, Monster Hunter's in it. So that's just the truth, but this is my design, and if I'm going to pick one generic character to represent them all, it's going to be the Arisen. Because I think that the Arisen makes the most sense as a Dragon's Dogma choice, because you can't really pick the dragon, that's way too big. All the enemy types are pretty standard, generic fantasy tropes. The Arisen, I think, has a lot of potential because of their moveset potential, switching between classes and stuff. Alright, well, that is the 12 bonus characters on top of the 54, to make a total roster of 66. That is a dream of Nintendo vs. Capcom I've held in my heart for over 25 years now. But updated for the current day and age. I think that a roster like this would be a lot of fun. Capcom would definitely have some different choices. Nintendo would have some different choices. We wouldn't see Wolf in a crossover like this. We wouldn't see Meowth either. Pikachu would be sitting there staring us in the face. But that is that. And we'll end on the shot of April, I guess. Because I closed PowerPoint on mistake. Thank you for joining me for this birthday episode of LVLS Whenever. We will get to Silent Hill F next time, I promise. I promise you that. But until next time, friends, please take care. And again, Happy New Year.